one of the boxes at the bottom of the screen has a PowerPoint in it. So
Yeah.
if you want to see that on the big screen, you just have to click on it. The only problem is you can't click through the PowerPoint. You can just tell me, I'll follow along with you, but if I forget or just tell me to click to the next one. But I'm usually pretty good at following along with where you.
Okay, sounds good.
I mean, if it's easier for you to have it up on your screen, that's fine too. But this can make it.
Okay, that sounds great.
All right, so whenever you're ready, go for it.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to thank everybody for coming in today to the Positive Coaching Alliance workshop, the Double Goal Coaching workshop that you're here for today. First things first, we just want to take care of a few logistical things and help you get credit for the workshop that you're attending today. So you'll see this screen has been on behind us here for a while as you've entered into the room. And what we'd like you to do to take attendance is just go ahead and get your cell phones out. We're not going to do anything on paper today, just record everything electronically. So if you could send a text to the phone number up there on the screen, 650-763-2405, and then include all of the following, the hashtag or #, and then 00000, and then your first name, your last name, and your email address. And just want to make sure that you're aware that we don't sell any of this information. This is just information, again, to make sure that you get credit for who you're here with and who asked you to be here, as well as there's also some really great tools that we will be sharing with you. There's some weekly coaching emails that will be coming out to you to help you with some tips throughout your season, as well as you'll have access to the PCA Development Zone website. So some great tools and great tips, and just I'll just wait for you to put your phones down, and when your phones are down, the majority of the room, that'd be a good indicator to know that we can move on.
All right.
Okay, looks like everybody's ready to go. So again, my name is Sam Kristensen, and I'll be your trainer for the day. Just a little bit of background about me. Currently, I'm working as a high school counselor at Bishop Kelly High School in Boise, Idaho. I've been working as a high school educator for the last 14 years. I have experience working as a head varsity baseball coach, assistant baseball coach. I've been an athletic director at 2 different high schools in California and in Idaho, as well as I'm a triathlete coach, head triathlete coach for the Boise State University Broncos tri club team. So that's a little bit of background about me, and I'm sure you as well are curious, what we're here for, and so we can get into our next slide, which is, you've all signed up for the Double Goal Coaching workshop today, and just to get a pulse around the room, I just would want to know, have any of you ever been to this workshop before? Okay, doesn't look like anyone. Okay, just real quick too, just a quick idea just around the room. How many of you, this is your first year coaching? Anyone 1 to 3 years? Okay, great. Looks like we have some few. 3 to 6. All right, I got a few there. Anyone with 10 more years out there? All right, great. Well, I just want to let you know that it doesn't matter if you're going into your first season or if you have 10 years experience. The goal here is that this is a workshop, and this is collaborative, and we want to make sure that this is valuable to everybody. So our goal with this is to give you, our philosophy of how to help improve performance, as well as build life lessons with your athletes. And so hopefully, again, we're all about growth mindset, and we just want to make sure that, you come ready to go and give us your attention, and we're going to give, you 100%. We ask that you give us 100%, and hopefully everybody can walk away feeling like they've learned something that they can implement for this season. Okay, so next slide.
Yep.
And just real quick, as an introduction, who is PCA? PCA, it was founded, it is as a nonprofit from Stanford University. It serves over 80,000 coaches annually, as well as over 3.3 million youth are reached annually. And we do 2,500 live workshops a year, and we have over a million visits to the PCA Development Zone website. So I guess for me, I would just want to take a pulse and get an idea of, what does, the phrase positive coaching mean to you? Maybe just real quickly, you can just do a little bit around your table, a little pair share, maybe just 30 seconds, just kind of share out to each other, what does positive coaching look like and mean to you?
Okay.
Okay, so
We'll share back.
hopefully everyone's kind of shared out. We'll click on to the next slide. And basically, what we want to let you know is for the PCA that what it means to PCA is that it's creating an atmosphere that supports the best possible performance, otherwise known as peak performance. So sometimes people might hear the term positive coaching and think maybe something on a very recreational level, non-competitive, that everyone ends the day, win, lose, or draw, and everyone goes home with a trophy maybe. But we want you to understand that we are trying to get the optimal, best possible performance for each of our programs and our athletes and our coaches, while at the same time developing, growth mindset, lifelong lessons as well. So that's a little bit about what PCA is and our philosophy on that. And just real quick, we just want to give you a little bit of an introduction to the power of positive. And basically, again, we want to make sure that we're getting the best out of our athletes. So Dr. Barbara Fredrickson, who sits on the National Advisory Board, she's also a psychology professor at UNC. She's done and looked at over 25 years of research, and what she's seen and through this research is that positive emotions are especially contagious, and a leader's positive emotions are more contagious than anyone else's. She also talks about how there's a perception that the best way to get what you want out of employees or players is by negativity or threats. But negativity doesn't work as well as positivity, according to the research. Can any of you out there talk a little bit briefly about maybe a negative experience that you've had versus a positive experience that you've had in relationship to what Dr. Fredrickson is talking about?
Well, I can only remember one time really kind of being chewed out by a coach, like getting yelled at in an aggressive way of all the coaches I had. And I can speak from my personal experience. It didn't make me play better. I didn't respond very well. That's the only time I can think of. Whereas I feel like I received a lot of encouragement from various coaches and teachers and mentors along the way. And I feel like, again, personally, I did respond well to that.
It's just curious too. Has anyone ever had a maybe like a negative environment where maybe it did kind of spur something forward for you? Because sometimes I hear that. I'm just curious to know if anyone has had anything where it kind of maybe gave you a little jolt.
Yeah, I mean, I remember I had a very vocal, loud field hockey coach in high school, and when she yelled at us, we jumped. She used to joke around that, when I yell jump, you say how high on the way up, but we really did. I mean, if we were kind of, laying back and being a little bit lazy out there and she screamed at us, we would all like sharpen up right away and pick up our step and hustle a little bit more. So I think it works sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, one of the things, in considering that and talking to each other today is that sometimes, coaches can get a little bit more of a bark to them, or they may ask you to do something in a more aggressive manner, but sometimes that doesn't necessarily mean that it's negative. Maybe the tone is stronger, but the overall messaging is that kids need to make sure that they know that they're cared about, that they feel connected, that they can develop better, they can improve. But I just want to be careful that there's some short-term things that can happen when you kind of bark at someone, but the overall philosophy in the research shows that positive emotions, positive mindset for long-term development, athletically as well as with life lessons, that's where the research is, and that's how we choose to work within our philosophy. So we're here to give you some more tools about that. And this next slide just again reiterates that a little bit. It was an article in Sports Illustrated back in 2015 And at the top, you can see it's circled, and it basically talks about the last days of the abusive coach. So sometimes people get confused on, like Kelly said, if someone said, hey, we need to do this, and you jump a little bit higher, you go a little bit, there's a little bit of motivation to kind of push out. But the days of an abusive, over the top, over and over, negative reinforcement style of a coach, those days are gone. It's just not something that is going to sustain, and all the research shows that it's not healthy and it's not viable for best possible performance and best possible people. And it's something that elite coaches agree upon as well, and the results are there. And on this next slide, here's a small sample size of coaches that agree, and they have stated that this is how they would want their sons or daughters. This is how they would want their grandchildren to be coached as well. So these are elite coaches, elite players at the highest level. And this is a philosophy where, again, you don't have to take my word for it. The research is out there. And at the highest level, these are people of influence that have had success, and what they're also, sharing with us that is successful. And then on the flip side of that, one thing to just talk about briefly is just what exactly negativity does. And essentially what it does is it distracts you from being able to get your optimal best performance. It takes away from team chemistry and being able to focus on getting to a collective result that you're working towards. Personally, Ruben shared, earlier just about one experience. I think we've all had those experiences. I would just like maybe at this time talking a little bit about the positive earlier as well as the negative. Maybe just take about 30 seconds at each table and just maybe share a moment where you can recall something negative that had happened, that was distracting you from your task. It could be in a work environment, it can be, in an athletic environment, but something that pulled you off task. And then contrary to that, talk about, something positive that was done and how that helped improve your performance or your effort or your energy and help you get towards a task. So you can just go ahead and talk about that for a few minutes as a table. That'd be great. And then I just would let people kind of talk it out, compare some stories, continue just to break down barriers. And then I would go to the next slide at that point after a little bit of discussion. And then I would just follow up and ask. So some questions, do you agree after your conversation with each other? Does positive work better? Would anyone like to share?
I'll share that I do think it works better.
Okay. Does anyone, collectively, I guess, show of hands, does anyone think does negativity distract from?
Uh-oh.
We lost him. Back on. That was quick.
We lost you temporarily there. Yeah, but
okay,
so show of hands if we agree that negativity distracts. My hand's going up.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I would agree. I can just give just one brief thing about coaching. If something doesn't go right, I've had moments in a baseball dugout coaching, and you don't get a call. That you're already in balls and strikes or something like that, and then it just takes over the culture and the feel and the atmosphere of the moment of the game, and then people can't continue. The players can't continue to focus on what's most important now, which is the next pitch or in this moment or being in the present, because they're focusing on a call or someone yelling or something like that. And I know we've all had those experiences as coaches. So I think the best thing is to just, again, continue to work in the positive and not let negative situations dictate future outcomes, because that's where your focus is. So with that being said, why do you think there's so much negativity in sports these days?
I think that people are just under a lot of pressure. I think they put a lot of pressure on their kids to perform well. Everybody wants their kids to succeed. So I think a lot of the negativity comes from the parents.
Okay.
Yeah, and I agree with that, and I think a lot of it comes from coaches too. We want to look good. We want people to think that we're good coaches. When I go into the barber shop tomorrow to cut my hair a little shorter, I want to be able to tell the barber that my team played great and we won, and that we're undefeated. And so I think, everybody wants to win, but one team's going to win and one team's going to lose, and so there's some natural frustration built into competitive sports.
Right. And then I would go to the next slide here, and I would say, and I would acknowledge those things, and say, PCA's vision. One of the things is that we understand that there's negativity in sports, and contests can become contested and heated, and emotions can, really start to flare up. But our vision is that, again, with using sports psychology research, with using best practices, and helping coaches to develop, we want to make sure that we're developing better athletes and better people and optimizing the best possible performance athletically as well as in life. And just so you know, and I would go next slide. You have, there's a ton of support that we offer at the PCA. We have the book that you have, which are scattered around today, which you should have. The Power of Double Go Coaching. It's a great resource for you. It's a little over 70 pages. It's something that you can pick up at any time, multiple times. I encourage you. You don't even necessarily have to go through it from front cover to back cover. There's different chapters and sections that you can always get these reminders of, how to continually improve and think about infusing positivity into your coaching style and your program to help get the best possible performance. There's also, again, when you signed in earlier today, there's the weekly coaching talking points and the PCL development zone. Those are all great things. So you're not alone in this. And if this hasn't been your frame of mind and thinking about positive coaching, just want you to know that at the end of today, again, this is a workshop, and that this is a relationship, and then there's a lot of resources for you that you can access, and we will help also continue to push you. And then I would go to the next slide. And then just real quick, just a quick table share. I just want you to think about what makes a great youth sports experience for kids. If you can just share that with each other real quick, and we'll come back here in a few.
Okay.
Okay, it looks like everyone's pretty good. Kind of walked around the room a little bit, heard some really good things out there. I may share some things of what I heard in the room at that time about some things that I heard. So no one's put on the spot, but just generally kind of saying what I heard. And if that developed into more of a conversation, I would just let that kind of flow for a little bit to keep the energy good. I'm involved. And I would just lead into saying, PCA research says that a meaningful athlete experience, so I'd be on the next slide, is when students feel connected to a teammate or a coach, when they believe that they can improve, and when they feel proud about acting with integrity. And then I would go to the next slide. And this is how we do it at PCA. And this is something that we'll get more into throughout the rest of the day, and where more of our focus is throughout the rest of the workshop. But how we help kids connect is we do that by emotionally filling their tank. We call it the E-tank. We use the Elm Tree of Mastery to help for giving people structured and timely feedback and goals so that they can feel like they have a growth mindset, mastery mindset. And then we use honoring the game in order to make sure that whether we're players, coaches, parents, that we respect the game and we respect everyone within that system, which is roots. And we'll get into that a little bit later as well. And then just briefly, I want to go ahead and let you guys listen to this video by Herm Edwards, Understanding Your Legacy. And so we'll go ahead and put that on.
Okay.
And we would watch that.
We just pretend that we watched it.
Okay. And now, it's a great, powerful message. What I want you to do in reflection now of that message is take a look at the question, the quote up behind me, and just talk to some people at your table and ask and share out, when the book of your life is written, will it say you made a difference? And then I would let them do that. And then after they were done, with that, I would maybe ask for some Q&A a little, or just, if anyone wanted to share, this would be a good time to do that. And ask maybe some questions about how specifically, they feel like they could get validation for that what they did made a difference. So hit more on the tones of the life lessons pieces too, building not only in the coaching aspect of it, wins and losses and things like that for performance, but asking for validation of life lessons and kind of going on that piece of it. And then that would lead into the next slide, hopefully getting some of those life lessons for the next slide. And that would be, so let's explore, how you can truly be a positive coach. And here's PCA's model again. And what we're trying to do again is give you a platform to where you can be a double goal coach, where you're always striving to win and getting the best possible performance, but also at the same time, teaching life lessons along the way. And if I were to ask you today, what was more important based on listening to Herm Edwards, down the road and making an impact, would you say that wins and losses in any given season are more important, or is teaching life lessons and what you gain from that, is that more important?
I would say teaching life lessons, because
life lessons.
They've got to compete.
Okay. And the difference between that and with PCA is that, coaches who only are striving to win, or we would consider that, a winning at all cost coach. And, there's going to be times where you're going to be challenged with situations where teaching life lessons and striving to win are going to collide with each other. Do any of you have any examples of what that has looked like with you in the past?
Well, for me, it's looked like,
do.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, for me, it's looked like a time where an important player, maybe a star player, has misbehaved on the court or treated someone disrespectfully, and I got to make a decision: do I keep them in the game, or do I pull them out and let them know that that's not acceptable? It can be a tough decision.
All right, Kelly, you were going to say something, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say that probably one of the biggest problems I had with this was at a practice, because I had a girl that was just obnoxious at practice, and every time I had to stop and address it, it would take away from my practice time and it would throw off the flow. So I chose to ignore her, thinking that would work, and it didn't work really well. So yeah. I should have just stopped and addressed it, rather than just, I only had an hour for practice and I didn't want to keep taking up the time. So I let it go, which I shouldn't have.
Right. Yeah, I think that's something that as coaches, we struggle with at times. But I think ultimately sometimes we look for short-term solutions, but long-term we have really negative effects. And there's probably a lot of those situations that we could talk about in this room. But I think based on what we heard from everyone and a show of hands, that the teaching of the life lessons are very important, much more important than any given at all cost athletic performance on any given day. So just thank you for that honesty and perspective it was sharing with each other today. And then
that's it.
Yeah, so that's kind of how I would intro it.
All right. Yeah, that goes right into the first principle. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. How'd you feel doing that for the first time?
I feel like the format's tough, but it's good to do it. I've read through it a lot. I've kind of talked it out some. But yeah, I'm much more of a live interact. The screen this is the first time I've ever done anything on a screen. So this is a little different for me.
Good. Well, that's why we do it. That's why we do it, to get it out of your way. Although I wouldn't mind a trip to Boise, because I've heard it is very nice there.
Yeah.
So when you meant format, I didn't know if you meant this or you meant the format of the way the workshop was set up. I wasn't sure which one you meant.
Just the Google Hangout. I'm not super comfortable with Google Hangout, but.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, great. Ruben, would you like to start giving Sam some feedback?
Sure. I'll just share a few things with you, Sam. And I have a feeling Kelly will have more detail for you. Sam, I thought you handled it really well. I think you're really smooth. You're a really great communicator. There's no doubt that you know the content. You understand the concepts, that the PCA terminology. I thought you had a nice flow. I like the way you sprinkled in the paired shares and the table shares to break up, your own voice, your own talking. So I thought it was good. I think you, it took about 25 minutes, I think. And you got to keep in mind that we did fast forward through some of the shares. So in a live group, that 25 could turn to 30 or 35. So you're probably going to want to pick up the pace, and I thought there was one example, so then I asked myself, well, where does he cut? Where the one most, the strongest example where I think you could have picked up the pace is on the slide that says, do you agree that positivity works better and negativity distracts? I thought that before you then asked why is there so much negativity, I thought that we did some rehashing of why positivity works better and negativity when we were already in agreement with you. You'd already sold us, and so there was an unnecessary additional, I thought, rehashing of it. So I think that first part is 10 seconds, and most people are gonna be with you, and so then it's quickly then, okay, so if we know this, if we understand, if we're all in agreement, then why do people get so negative around sport? Get to that part two quicker.
Okay.
And then Sam, as a trainer eventually, and I think this is much easier to do in a live situation than the Google Hangout, but I want to see at some point the playful, lighthearted side of your personality, because you're very professional, very polished, and that is outstanding. And I think when you're with people for an hour and a half, 2 hours, they want to see you smile and laugh and to show the lighter, more playful side of your personality.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
I thought it was very strong, Sam.
All right.
Thanks, Ruben.
Yep.
So I noticed right off the bat, I think you were a little bit nervous with this format, and that the reason is because I think in the beginning you had more of like the and then towards the end that completely disappeared. So right. I feel like that was definitely a format thing, which I'm good. I also agree. You can tell you're an educator. You can tell that you're a counselor. I have an appreciation for that, just in the way that you were, even though we weren't actually a real audience in the room with you, you were kind of reading like, I would make sure I'd walk around the room. I'd make sure they understood. I was a teacher for many, many years, so that lingo is familiar with me, and I'm appreciating that in you. So I thought that was great.
Okay.
Some of the things I think you may have skipped over on this format that I knew you wouldn't is definitely getting our voices in the room a little bit sooner. So when we do a share or a table share, as I said, a couple later on, when you added a couple of the other questions, you did ask us to share, but you also might want to think about asking us to switch tables or switch with a different partner. You just find that people always go to the same people constantly. So just keep that in the back of your mind. Obviously with this, I was going to talk to Ruben, but other than that, just keep that in mind. People are very comfortable talking to the same people, but they always sit with their friends. So if you just say turn and share and turn and share and turn and share, they'll always pick the same person. Okay. I agree with Ruben. I think you spend a little bit too much time on the negativity aspect. I think of this beginning of the workshop as sort of the trailer that's going to get everybody interested in what you're going to say next. But the 3 principles of positive coaching and the tools are what the coaches really want. So this, even though we say 20 minutes, the 20 minutes is building in the discussion, building in their experiences, building in, pulling that emotion out of them and some stories out of them, and also you telling some stories. So that was something that I would like also you to add in there somewhere. Aside from just your personal background, like this is what I've coached, this is what I've done. Tell me about a player that didn't react well to negativity. Maybe you were negative to a player at one time. Maybe you had a coach bite your head off and it's something that you remember. Because the point is that when the book of your life is written, does it say you made a difference?
Mm-hmm.
So I want you to bring out that emotion in some of these coaches in the room and have them think about, wow, I'm 47 years old and I remember when I was 15 and my coach was screaming at me. I can't remember what I made for dinner last night, but I can remember that 30 some years later. So those are the things at the beginning of the workshop that will get the coaches in the room to connect to you. So I'd love to hear, especially since you've coached different sports and different ages, I would love to hear some of that from you too, Sam, to help you connect to the coaches. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Okay. And a couple of the things too, just language wise, I think you're going to get this. It's going to become smoother. We were talking about, you said, and I actually wrote this down, this quote, because I was trying to remember what you said. When you were talking about negativity, you said positive mindset. That's how we work within our philosophy, which is true. But the comment I wrote down was use stronger language, because you want to keep it very simple for these coaches. Then when it got to the slide from Sports Illustrated, you said that being negative is not healthy and it's not viable for best performance. That is a strong statement right there. So I like that. It's very simple. Being negative is not healthy and it's just not viable for strong performance. But the one you said before about not working into our philosophy, I think that's just a little weak. And I think at this point in the workshop, we want them to know that, yeah, coaches use negativity. Yeah, it works sometimes, but I don't know if I would put a whole discussion around that, because if you start opening up that can of worms to say, well, when has negativity motivated you, and haven't closed that topic with a really strong statement, you're going to get coaches that go, well, I think negativity works. It's worked for me. So I just think it just needs to be a little stronger. And maybe when you go back and watch it, we hate to watch ourselves, but sometimes when you go back and watch, you can see yourself when you have a strong statement and you can see when it's a little bit fuzzy. So I just would encourage you to make it a little stronger ending on that argument, because you're going to have coaches in the room that are going to push back and say, no, negativity works. I coach boys travel football and they need that tough love. So you have to have a defense for that. And I don't know that Charlie Marr and Ken Revisa and Barbara Fredrickson are going to be enough. They don't want to know necessarily the research. They want to know, when has it worked for them? Would they perform better? Well, it's taking your mind out of the moment. Do you want your athletes to have their mind out of the moment, or do you want to have your athletes' mind in the moment? Personally, I'd rather have them in the moment. So just something that was just a negativity area that I wanted to address. I like some of the quotes that you did say. You said, don't let negative decisions affect future outcomes. I think that's a great line. I mean, it's so true. The decisions you make in the moment are going to affect things in the future. So I really like that as well. Let me see. I love the way you're already planning to walk around the room. I think that's so important, rather than just staying in the front. And I think that's how you get people engaged. I really like the way that you said, you explained really quick, just this slide right here that just has the tools on it. I thought you did a really nice job at explaining kind of the goal for each of those principles. Sometimes people go on a little bit too long. And I always tell people, keep it brief on this slide, because you're going to be talking about the principles for the next hour. So this should be brief. I thought you did a really nice job at explaining what each of those principles were. The other question, and this is one that I've just gotten picky on lately, because I did this about a year ago at a workshop. I put up this slide that says, after the Herm Edwards video, and I said, when your life is written, will it say that you made a difference? Turn to a partner and answer that question. And I had two guys in front of me at the table turn to each other and say, yes. And it hit me that that's a yes or no question. So, I actually put that up there now as a rhetorical question. When the book of your life is written, will it say that you made a difference? And then I go one step further and say, how would you like to be remembered by the kids you're coaching right now? So you kind of, you take that quote, which is an actual quote from Herm, but that can't be the question they discuss, because you might have somebody go, nope, that's it. There's the discussion. You can't talk for 2 minutes with a partner about yes or no. So again, something I up. And last tip I said, I agree with Ruben. I'd love to see you vary up your tone a little bit, the pace a little bit, the energy level. I think, again, you are very professional and polished. And I think after, an hour and a half, the coaches need to get a little bit more, energy, examples, tone of voice, something like that, that'll just help to spice it up a little bit for you. Just have a little bit more fun.
Sounds good.
Yeah. All right.
Love
so
it.
the next demo that you're going to do is one of the principles. And I actually would prefer to do the principles, because you actually get to get into what this principle is, the theory behind it. Then you're going to maybe bring up a story from your own example, or stories out of your coaches, or an exercise to get them to actually really think about the concept and how they can use it with their athletes. And then it gets into the tools. So the tools are probably one of the most important things that these coaches want. They want to walk out of your workshop and go, this is what Sam told me to do.
Yeah.
So when you go through the principle, that's sort of how it's set up. Sort of the explanation, research background, then it makes it concrete for them by using a scenario. But then the tools is probably the most important part. How do you get the coaches to practice the tools in your workshop, really make them come to life, think about how they would use them? And that's sort of the format of the next 3 principles. So the next demo, you can pick whichever principle you'd like to do, and we'll go through that.
Okay, that sounds great.
Yeah.
Right.
Did you have anything else to add?
No, just keep practicing. I really appreciate the feedback.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
Yeah, so I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you so much, Sam.
Okay, thanks. You guys have a great afternoon.
Yep.
You too. Bye, guys.
Okay, you too.
Bye.